In this week's episode of Studio Inter, we'll be discussing the win against PSV in the Champions League, the fourth win in a row against SPAL in the Serie A, this week's Moggi, Moratti and Frog, and much, much more. Everything here on Studio Inter, only on sempreinter.com.
Attenzione, se ne va largo dall'estero il tiro, la spinta corta, Milito, e gol! Attenzione, Ronaldo salta anche Marchegiani e mette dentro il 3-0. Andiamo, il principe entra in area, è solo, il tiro, e gol! Con Ronaldo a battere questo calcio di punizione molto lungo per Zamorano che gira bene al centro, attenzione, il destro, violentissimo, e lo spettacolare gol da parte di Zanetti. La prima squadra che vince qua è la nostra Inter, l'Inter vince, e dillo, campioni d'Europa, campioni d'Europa, i più forti siamo noi. Nulla è impossibile per questa Inter, nulla è impossibile.
Bentornati to another edition of Studio Inter. I'm your host Nima Tavallaey, wishing you all, hope you've had a lovely week and wishing you all welcome to another edition of Studio Inter. 6 in a row in all competitions for Inter. It all started against Tottenham, but before we get into that, let me welcome our panelists, starting with the gentleman ultra himself, Mr. Richard Hall. Welcome back.
Hi guys, good to see you all, and it's a nice time to be back to discuss a bit of Inter, isn't it, today?
Yes, it is. It certainly is. And we are also joined by by sempreinter.com's own preview writer, Mr. Mohamed Nassar. Welcome.
Hi guys, great to be back. Hope all is well.
It certainly is. And we are also joined by a special guest. He's coming back for the first time this season, but we usually have him on. He writes for ESPN, BBC Sport, BT Sport. You've seen him everywhere. Welcome back, Mr. James Horncastle.
Thanks for having me, guys. Always a pleasure to talk about Inter with you.
Thank you very much. Let's get right into it then. Inter, the season started pretty shaky, to be nice, and then things turned around completely. 6 games in a row in all competitions, 2 in the Champions League, 4 in the Serie A. If we start at the beginning, James, what were your expectations going in, and for Inter, and how well do you think that Inter have lived up to those expectations?
Look, I had big expectations for Inter at the start of the season because I was impressed by the business that they'd done in the transfer window. It's not the first time that I've gone into a season over the last, 6-7 years, thinking that Inter are going to be back and that they can contend for the title, or at least be a challenger in the way that Roma and Napoli have been for the last few years. I suppose one of the other reasons why I was quite excited was I looked at the fixture list as well, and I thought it's been quite kind to Inter at the start of the season. Sassuolo, Torino, Bologna, Samp, Spal, as we saw at the weekend, Fiorentina, Cagliari. They haven't really faced anyone that you would say is a top 6 contender up until now, with the greatest respect to Samp and Fiorentina. So I thought it was a real opportunity for them to rack up points. We know that the sort of margin of error is just so fine. It was fine last year. It seems to have got even finer this year. The upturn in results of late is great, but I still look at the table and Inter are 8 points off the top. So I think things are steadily improving, and I think between the last international break and this one, there's a lot to be encouraged by. And to be honest, I was trying to think, have Inter played in the way that I would expect a Spalletti team to play? And by that I mean kind of free-flowing, they score lots of goals, they're exciting to watch. And I kind of thought, no. But then again, I thought there's been lots of kind of good things about Inter so far this season. First half against Torino when they were 2-0 up, I thought they were good playing with a back 3. I thought the way they hung in the game and kept going against Bologna, and then once they got that first goal, everything kind of falls into place. Comeback against Spurs was just unexpected but brilliant, and I think You really saw the kind of San Siro effect, and that seems to have been the turning point in the season. How they kept going against Samp as well. Inter's a team that their character's always questioned, and yet I think they've shown kind of repeatedly this year that they can stand up and react to when things go against them. Again, we saw that in the Fiorentina game when Fiorentina got level and looked to be on top and playing really well. They ended up seeing them off. We saw it at the weekend against SPAL when SPAL played very well and got back into the game, and you thought, the momentum's with them now. And alas, Inter managed to make their quality show and got the win. And so I think from that point of view, it's been a very encouraging 4 weeks.
That's interesting. Richard, do you have a question you want to raise with James?
Yeah, I do. Last time I think you were on, when I was on, it was just before the end of last season, and you said to me, don't be negative. I was going out to Rome pretty soon after that for the Lazio game. You said, have a bit of faith, and lo and behold, it came through. So I'm a little bit quite excited for this season with everything that's been going on. But touching on your point and on the fixtures, last season, before what really was a bit of a winter of discontent with Inter, they were doing exceptionally well, heading the table for a lot of that before it all went wrong, and they had quite a large spell of games without victory. And you touched on it there, and I'm sort of of the same opinion that they're not probably playing that free-flowing football you may have expected. But do you think that this squad, because of those fixtures at the moment, does it look like they are overachieving? Because, as you rightly say, the derby's coming up, then it's Barcelona, Lazio, free-scoring Genoa team, Barcelona and Atalanta, and no one likes going to Bergamo. So do you think that with Inter at the moment, there's a level which is probably in between where they're performing at now and where we thought they might be at the start of the season? Because I don't want to be negative at all, but you say the character's been fantastic. The strength of depth looks better. It does look better than last season. But I think the one thing is, it's just always just does concern me that, they don't, when we have a dip, it always then seems to be a big dip. Do you think we're better equipped for that, is what I'm trying to say, this season than last?
I don't know. Honestly, because you're right. Inter have the most dramatic mood swings of any team. When they're happy, everyone's happy, and it's the best thing ever. And when things are going bad, it's so bad. You mentioned going into mid-December last year, had a game until they went to Udine. That game was actually Serie A, and all of a sudden it fell apart for them. And I don't think anyone was really expecting them to go on a kind of 2.5 months.
Yeah, it was under jam, wasn't it? It was terrible.
But that was kind of consistent with what had happened under Mancini as well, when they looked like they were going to be winter champions that year, and then kind of they had that last game before Christmas against, I think it was Lazio. Felipe Anderson had a magnificent game, and it all just went to bits. I think Spalletti deserves great credit for getting them out of that tailspin last year. I think he showed that he was able to do that where other managers weren't in the past, although not always Mancini's biggest fan, but Mancini did finish 4th with Inter and would have qualified for the Champions League. Serie A had 4 Champions League places. But in terms of putting that start to the season in perspective, they were without their crucial summer signing, in my opinion, Ragnar England, the guy who's there to make things click for Spalletti. He did not play until match day 3 and made an instant impact. And, we've seen he can get them goals from midfield in a way that they weren't able to do that last year. Their best players went the distance in the World Cup. Perisic was there until the final. Vishalko, again, arrived late. Was part of that Croatia team that was runners-up in Russia. Keita Baldi-Diao, I think, is a really good signing, and it'll be interesting to see how he develops over the coming season. But he arrived on, what was deadline day in Italy, August 15th. So he had a lot of kind of moving parts and a lot of players who were in different stages of their kind of fitness. And I think that probably complicated matters somewhat. So I think now we're getting a better picture of what Inter are and who they could be. Then that's kind of quite delicate, tricky stage between the start of the season and the first international break, which, even though Allegri always manages to get maximum points and cleans up, I think quite rightly points out that is a really tricky part of the season where transfer windows, goes on till the eve of the season. Players are in different stages of fitness, and it does feel like an extension of pre-season rather than the full season starting. So I'd hope Inter are better equipped. I mean, we've certainly seen that ability to come back against Spurs, come back against PSV, get pegged back in the Fiorentina and SPAL games, and manage to stay in the game and find a way to win those games. I think those are all kind of really impressive about the mentality that Inter have got. And remember, what really got everyone excited last year was how well Inter did in the big games. No one expected them to go to Napoli and get a result, to go to Juventus and get a result. So I think that was the thing that I think everyone had everyone believing the hype around Inter going into sort of Christmas last year.
That's interesting. Mo, do you have anything you want to ask James?
Yeah, James, I was wondering, we were all quite bullish about Inter in the beginning of the season, and then, of course, the start was a bit shaky. Now that we're, 8 games into the Serie A, are you as optimistic about the side's chances this year as you were at the beginning of the season, or are you even more optimistic or less so?
I have been taken aback by how well Napoli have done under Carlo Ancelotti. Let's put it that way. I thought Napoli would fall away and regress this year, and I feel like a mug for saying that now. Ancelotti's use of that squad, you saw it at the weekend against Sassuolo, on the Sassuolo side that beat Inter, albeit on match day 1, which is complicated for all the things that I've just outlined. But Maurizio Sarri would never have played that kind of team against Sassuolo. So they're still very, very good. Roma have had an upturn in form a little bit like Inter over the last 4 weeks between the September and October international breaks. But you look at the kind of fixtures that they've been playing, and you would expect them to win those games. I would have expected them to win them at the start of the season. I think Inter can push for second. This again is what I expect of Spalletti. I'm one of his biggest fans, even though I was thinking about this the other day. I did start to wonder whether his second spell at Roma was a little bit like Jose Mourinho's time at Real Madrid, in where he becomes a little bit paranoid. He picks too many battles in the press. He's too prickly, even when you're paying him a compliment after the match. He thinks you've got some kind of an agenda. And, let's not forget some of the things he said to these players last year. And I did wonder, whether it might all unravel. And instead, the kind of tough love that he's given them seems to have galvanized them rather than torn them apart. And I think the other thing that makes me really optimistic about Inter, relatively speaking, is the fact that last year they were so dependent on Icardi for goals. What was it? 44% of Inter's goals came from Icardi. This year they've had 10 or 11 different goal scorers. Icardi missed a few games through injury. They managed to beat Bologna without him. That's not saying much given that Bologna can't score for toffee. But that's another positive sign, I would say, that they've got they've got players who can now chip in with goals in a way that's, I mean, Tavallaey, for example, last year, only Marcus Alonso scored more goals in Europe's top 5 leagues among defenders. Nainggolan's good for double figures in a Spalletti side. Politano's probably been the signing that's impressed me most. Hit the ground running kind of straight away. Can catch a beer thrown at him from the crowd. Something I wasn't expecting.
I did see you tweet something about that you were a bit, or not about that, but the fact that he wasn't in the national team, that kind of annoyed you a little bit, I thought.
Yeah, I find that mind-blowing. I don't understand how a guy who's playing regular Champions League football is not in the squad for his second international break in a row. And someone like Gianluca Caprari is.
Oh, don't talk shit about Caprari. Come on. You literally went after my. I love Gianluca Caprari. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God, James! I
Yeah,
thought this was going to be a nice conversation.
That's irrational, though, Nima. That's just your thing.
But okay, I'm not Caprari, but I would still have Politano in the squad ahead of him.
Yeah, I would have. I mean, I think for me it's different because I think Caprari under Giampaolo as a trequartista is a completely different player than the player he was as a winger. I think I understand what you're saying. I mean, we're talking different levels here. I mean, one is playing and performing in the Champions League. One is, with all due respect to Serie A and to Sampdoria, one is doing it at a much more smaller club and in a much more smaller setting. So I completely understand what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. You hear it all the time, how important it is for young Italian players to get Champions League minutes, meaningful Champions League minutes. And Politano's getting that. That's a difficult group where the pressure is on right from the get-go because it's the group of death. And I think he's stepping up for Inter in a way that I kind of expected, but I thought it would take him a while longer. I thought when he came on against SPAL at the weekend, again he was doing things. He's making things happen. I just like how he's taken to life at Inter. So yeah, that did annoy me. A lot of kind of what Mancini's doing with Italy already is annoying me. Yeah, go for it.
I wanted to ask you, do you think Inter can, given this perfect start in the Champions League, do you think Inter will qualify from the group?
I think what Richard was saying earlier about this next series of games after the international break is going to be really, really interesting. I hope that the back-to-back games against Barcelona do not kind of send Inter into despair. I hope they get something out of those games, that they draw ulterior kind of confidence from those games, because I certainly don't think Barcelona are as good as some people are prepared to make out. I think in the Spurs game, Messi was magnificent. It was a real show that he put on. But again, not entirely in keeping with everything that they've done this season. A little bit out of character, I'd say. So I still think Barcelona are not what they were 2 years ago, towards the end of Luis Enrique's time.
Agree.
But having said that, yeah, Messi is someone who can torment anyone, and you see it. I've seen it with Rome. I've seen it with Inter over the last few years. All you need is one bad performance like that to plant a seed of doubt in your minds, and it can send you into a bit of a spiral. So I think they have to be mentally strong, whatever happens in those games. But I mean, on the whole, I'm quite encouraged. I think the defense has played pretty well. Handanovic is having a mixed season.
Yes, he is.
Handanovic is capable of, insane saves like that one in the bicycle kick in Eindhoven.
Yeah.
And then coming out and missing that Iago Falque ball for
yeah.
Torino. And to be honest, it was at fault in the PSV game as well. Should have been sent off. I mean, they should have been sent off for handling outside.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's a bit of a worry. We all know that Inter tried to sign Luka Modric in the summer and address kind of sort of deep line playmaker, midfield organizer. I think it's been quite interesting to see Borja Valero given a look in again. After he was seen to have been forgotten down the back of the couch for the end of last season. I know he's like a Duracell bunny that kind of just stops moving after 55 minutes. But I think he's a useful player. I thought when he came on against Spurs, he made an impact. And let's not forget, he joined on a free. I think he's on quite a big wedge, is Borja. So I think it's important that they make the most of him. But yeah, I mean, on the whole, I think now that these players may be a bit fresh, a bit fitter, and they kind of, I think they seem to have settled on 4-2-3-1, haven't they? After a couple of experiments with playing a back three, which is quite interesting. But I think the signs on the whole are positive. I just want them to see. I just want to see Inter kind of scoring goals in the same way that Spalletti's Roma and Zenit sides did. Where and actually for them to entertain from start to finish, which I think they kind of did against PSV. I was really impressed with them against PSV, even though they kind of rode their luck a bit.
That was Inter set records there. I mean, they had 24 shots. They had 24 shots on target, not on target, but on goal, towards goal, and that was like some sort of that was a Champions League record for Inter. They had I think 9 in the first half, which was a complete record. Yeah. So James
Samp was really good as well. I thought brilliant in that, and didn't expect it because Samp's a really tough place to go unless you called Inter, which is surprising. I don't know what got over Gianpaolo, but yeah.
Right. Before we let you go, I just want to quickly ask you a couple of from first to sixth place in the Serie A, who do you predict, and who do you think is going to be Capocannoniere?
Okay, 1 to 6 in order. Yeah.
Yes, from 1 to 6.
Juventus. Big surprise there.
Yeah.
I would say Napoli. This is tough. This one's tough. Who do I go for? Is it Gufata? So I'm going to say Roma.
Okay.
Inter fourth. Oh God, this is actually hard. I've just remembered there's a team called Milan in Serie A. Yeah, this is actually really tough.
Little fact of Higuain in there.
Oh, yeah. This is tough. Crikey. I kind of think this is Milan's year to get back in the Champions League.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Well, then they have to win the Europa League, then, won't
they? You've made my mind up there. I mean, at the moment they've got the best striker in the competition. If you kind of factor in that Lacazette and Aubameyang take it in turns to play out wide for Arsenal. Okay. Oh God. Okay. Milan fifth then. I don't feel comfortable with that at all. And sixth, I'm going to go with Samp. I'd like to say Fiorentina, but I think Samp are starting to win away from home, which Fiorentina can't do at the moment. I think it's still very early days, but I like what Samp do a lot. Samp, I actively search out to watch. I try and watch every Samp game because they're very interesting.
Yeah, you and me both. I think Quagliarella, Caprari, and then Gianpaolo as a coach as well. I think it's a really interesting project that. So who do you think is going to be a Capocannoniere? Will it be Ronaldo or is it Piontek, your pick? Because he just can't score. He can't stop scoring.
I love the fact that Piontek. We're going to find out, aren't we? Piontek he's going to have to play against Juventus first game back from the international break. So let's see how that record whether he can still be on Batistuta's tail after that one. Can Piontek win it? That's I have a feeling that Higuain will probably win it. I think he's on a great streak at the moment. That team's playing exclusively for him. And I don't know about you, and maybe this is blasphemy for you guys, but Milan play really good football, which I was not expecting from Rino Gattuso. They play their football is really easy on the eye. So I'm going to go with Higuain because he seems to have something going with Suso. So yeah, Gonzalo, the Golnado. Yeah.
It's a good shout.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, thanks so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure. And if people want to follow you on Twitter, what's your handle and what have you got? Anything special coming up now soon?
So my handle on Twitter is @JamesHorncastle. I'm going to Bologna on Wednesday. That's this week, yeah. For an interview. And then I'm going to try and do some stuff around the Milan derby as well, because that's coming up. So I'm looking forward to going to that. And yeah, I mean, you were saying, Nima, that the international breaks are good, like a bit of a breather. For me, it's an absolute nightmare because like clubs are unwilling to do anything during the period when they've got 7 games in 21 days.
That's true.
And then when there's a fortnight, they're like, yeah, do you want to do this? And it's like, kind of keeping lots of plates spinning at once. But, but yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much me. So yeah, boom.
Well, but be sure everyone to check that out. James is an awesome follow, and it's always nice to, and the stuff you do as well is also a pleasure to read and watch, whether it's TV or podcast or the stuff you write. So keep up the good work, amico.
Thank you, Nima. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your chat.
We will. Also, take care and have a good trip to Buon Viaggio to Italy, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, excellent. Cheers, dudes.
Ciao.
Cheers, James.
Right. Just before we, I thought we'd stop a little bit by talk about the SPAL and the PSV games, because I thought in a way the result was exactly the same. Well, the games were quite different. In the SPAL game, Inter looked really tired. They looked completely a team without energy, whilst against PSV, they were just full of energy, and they were all over, they were completely, okay, PSV were good, but Inter created a lot of chances, and Icardi on a good day usually scores 4 or 5 goals when he has those chances. I'm interested to hear what you think, Mo. What did you like the most with PSV and the SPAL games?
Yeah, to be honest, there isn't much I liked about the SPAL game other than the character shown and the grit and determination and, the desire. But in terms of gameplay, tactics, whatever, it was one of our poorer showings since the results started turning. As for the PSV game, there's a lot to like. I mean, we weren't as tight at the back as maybe we would have liked to have been, considering that we're playing pretty much with our strongest defensive back four. But that aside, the team in general played quite well. Chances were there. Everyone was full of legs and running. And like you said, it could have been put to bed far earlier had Icardi been on top form, on the same form that he was on against SPAL. Had that been the case last week, midweek, I think the result would not have been as tightly contested at all. So yeah, I mean, like in a nutshell, I liked the attitude and the character in both games. I liked the offensive play against PSV, but I wasn't too keen on the defensive display in either match.
Agreed. Richard, what is your take on the SPAL and the PSV games compared with each other?
I think, yeah, they're taking a positive on this, I think. And just relay something that James mentioned when he said that sometimes, like last season, we turned up in the bigger games. And it's for me, it's the contrast between the games is so great, even though there were similarities in it. You know, the amount of times we've had to come back from a goal down from mistakes that have been made and show real character. And they did that against SPAL, but I agree with Mo and you that the performance was really poor, really laboured. And it's almost like it takes a shock or a bit of luck for him to gather that momentum to go through and win it. And I think you could sit there and dissect quite heavily the SPAL game of like Mo mentioned the tiredness. Thought that was very evident. There will be a drop off the conversation. But when Inter are in the Champions League, as we've seen against Tottenham, we've seen against PSV, there's a real buzz. Obviously, you know, I mean, it was different against PSV because it's away from home. I mean, that's a very, very hostile crowd as well. But Inter seem to just be up for it. It's a different animal. They were quick. They create players that don't normally. You know, you'd look at the two games between SPAL and PSV, and if we watched them both back, the amount of the same players wanting the ball in one game and not looking too concerned in the second. Whether it's complacency against SPAL, I don't know. But for me, it's interesting because those games that are coming up, as James mentioned before, I'm hoping that the big occasion really is into this season, because if that's the case, then the games against Milan, the games against Barca, Inter might really, really show what their qualities are. And at the same point, while there are games against lesser opposition, if you would, like SPAL, even if there is a bit of complacency, a bit of, lack of energy, maybe because they're putting so much into the other games, at least they are getting through and winning it. My only concern is, though, it does feel like we are just riding our luck a little bit much, and I would like to see a few more of those chances, especially like before Nima in the PSV game. Getting it put to bed early in those games. But overall, yes, that was massively disappointing, but the points are on the board, and there's enough positives in other games to sort of compensate that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I like the idea of the fact that the team really shows up for the big games. I mean, we already know that from last year. And yeah, the difference is these shitty small games, we're actually picking up the points as compared to last year where we couldn't find the win for 2.5 months. So yeah.
I don't know. For me, what I liked against the PSV, I mean, I thought the PSV game, Inter played really, really well, especially in the first half. I thought Inter were unlucky to concede when they did, because that was a dream goal. But Inter played really good attacking football. But it's what we've been talking about, Mo, previously as well, you and I, that we are yet to see a good performance over 90 minutes. And in fact, I think I would even go so far as to say I think we're yet to see Inter produce a performance that's good over 2 halves. Like either the first half is good or the second half is good. In between that, it can really be pretty poor. I mean, the game against SPAL was really, really, their Inter didn't play good except for the first 10 minutes. Other than that, SPAL, I think, were the better team, and were really unlucky to lose that game. But for me, I mean, as long as, as Mourinho always said, I'd rather be a winning coach and a lucky coach than a good coach and lose. I'd rather be a lucky coach and a bad, and a lucky coach and win.
Yeah.
And I'd rather be a good than a good coach who loses. And that's fair enough. But I think it's time now. Although you got to say that, winning 6 in a row, it doesn't take anything away from you. I mean, you have to, you got to give credit where credit is due. You win 6 in a row, 2 in the Champions League, 4 in the Serie A. That's great. But I think it's time now for the team soon to start playing well, because we're in October now, and the derby will be in mid-October. And then from then on, we've got Barcelona away, then we have Lazio, and then it's just going to continue like that. And sure, I mean, I take from now to the next international break, I'd gladly take 6 more wins and play shitty if it means that you beat Barcelona home and away in Milan and Lazio. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I'm fine with that, but it's just that I'm getting, because I feel that at some point, the results won't go your way, and then you're losing and playing poorly, and that's when we know that's when we know that things at this football club can really quickly escalate into a crisis.
Massively.
And we don't want that, and that's the only worrying sign for me.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's kind of what I was half raised with James before as well, because it is we've seen it so many times that that last season I couldn't believe was it Sassuolo and Udinese, and then there was all the draws and I mean, I can't remember how many games it was. Was it most of December and most of January, and not till early February?
Pretty much.
To win.
Pretty much.
And again, when you look at contrast that team. Weren't we then, and I know we've got more strength in depth and more quality now, but weren't we saying the same things, that we're not playing particularly well? We're really, and everyone kept saying Inter are so lucky to be top of the table.
Yeah.
Inter, they aren't playing well, and how have they managed that, and et cetera, et cetera. And then next thing, we see what happens. And so, yeah, I mean, hopefully, those performances have got to come now. And that's why I think the derby could be really, really crucial.
Mo, what is your take? What is your take, Mo?
So the one thing I'd like to just add is I think the PSV game was the first game that Spalletti had his best starting 11 at his disposal to choose from, and even then Versalico was still not in the proper level of fitness to be able to start the game. So we James alluded to that earlier, the fact that Perisic, we've spoken about this ad nauseum earlier as well over a bunch of episodes. Brozovic and Perisic having a deep run into the World Cup, etc. So yes, it can be worrying. We're all waiting there, for something to happen. We've been lulled into this false sense of security a bunch of times under Mancini, etc., and a false sense of not security but euphoria. But I think there's something, I don't want to look back at this episode and think, this is where I have to eat my words. But there's something that feels different about this season. There's something that feels different about this Inter, and we kind of felt it last year. And
that's true. That's true.
And last year's Inter was different. I mean, there was the mid-season, coma. But Spalletti the team managed to turn things around, and the objective was achieved. So having that 3 or 4 year sample size now to choose from, and knowing what we know about the squad, all I see is an improvement on last year, albeit with subpar or sub-potential performances, but still it's so much better than we could have expected from what we've done in the previous years. I mean, again, the fact that so many players are scoring, so many options off the bench, the fact that he can actually rotate, meaningful squad rotation. We win a game without our best, our standout midfielder in Brozovic. It's just, there's a lot to be happy about and a lot to explain the lack in performance. So I'm concerned like you guys, but I'm also not concerned.
That's. I understand what you're saying. We'll just have to wait and see. But speaking of these two games, I just wanted to briefly, before we move on, the Handanovic situation, whether it was a penalty or not. I've consulted a couple of referees, and I've looked in the rule book, and basically what it says, the referee got it right. He shouldn't have been sent off because he wasn't preventing a clear goal scoring opportunity. And it's only a red if you prevent an actual, like a goal scoring opportunity. And it was so that's why he shouldn't have been sent off. And it was a couple of referees it was a couple of referees who actually told me this, that no, because of the fact that there were a couple of players behind Handanovic when he came out, he shouldn't have been sent off. He should have just gotten the yellow. So apparently, according to people who know, that was the correct decision.
That's interesting. That's interesting because I knew that. Actually, it's probably so unusual. It makes perfect sense when you say it, but it's so unusual that a goalkeeper gets himself in that position where he's that far adrift from what he's doing. He manages to handle the ball in that position because it is a rare thing to see. So for a while, it caused some conjecture and confusion. But it's good to know that. I don't know if it is good for him to know that, but he's do it again. But no, it explains a lot.
Yeah. So basically, I was talking to Michael Gallo at Galoots on Twitter, and he basically says that once the goalkeeper leaves the penalty area, and he's a referee, and he also works for TSN Sports, and he said once the goalkeeper leaves the penalty area, he's treated as an outfield player, and if anyone just grabs the ball deliberately in the middle of the field or wherever, it's always a yellow, unless it denies an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. And in this case, it didn't because there were multiple Inter defenders in position. Like, for example, Suarez in the World Cup versus Ghana, that denied a goal-scoring opportunity because he was the last man standing and the ball was going into the net. But handballing X amount of yards away from goal with multiple Inter players in position to defend, that's an easy call, and it's a yellow card. And when he explains it like that, it's like, of course it is, So we'll definitely be having Michael on soon to explain that handle much more clear, and we'll be grilling him as well. But yeah, speaking of but in both of those games, the Sempre Inter readers voted Mauro Icardi as the man of the match. Against SPAL, it was 75.7%, a huge win for Maurito, which is not that strange. Against PSV, he got a 39%. But who do you guys think came in second against SPAL?
That's a question. Which game did Handanovic actually make a few? Was it
both?
Was it the PSV game? Both games he made some. I'm going to go Handanovic then. I'm going to go Handanovic.
I would have gone with Handanovic because I thought his saves yesterday was against SPAL was fantastic. But it wasn't actually. It was Raja Nainggolan, 27%.
Okay.
Do not agree with that one bit at all. I thought he had a pretty mediocre game, to be honest, against SPAL. But no, against PSV, it was Handanovic in second place with 15% of the vote, but not against SPAL. Mo, I mean, as someone who's been critical of his not moving, you must have loved that his performance against SPAL because he was moving, wasn't he?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, again, he saves the balls that we expect him to save, not expect him to save, that we expect a player who we think is at that level to save. I mean, he's meant to be a top-class, world-class goalkeeper, and you would be surprised if De Gea made that save, or Courtois, or or Buffon in his day, or Neuer. These are world-class saves that he's made. It's those other ones that he lets through that just really kill me, and that hasn't changed. We haven't seen an improvement in that this season. What was the ball that came off the crossbar yesterday? Off the post. Not off the crossbar, off the post. And he was there, stood like a deer in headlights, completely nailed to the ground. It's the same thing, a ball flies across his face and he stands there flat-footed, doesn't know what to do. And that's what bothers me. But, we have to admit his distribution has improved, not tremendously, but it has improved. He doesn't look like a deer in headlights when someone passes the ball back to him anymore. So that's a definite positive in his performance this season over last. But still, that particular type of ball that gets shot at him quite frequently, I dread the day we play against Liverpool, because that's, Mo Salah's bread and butter, the cross ball in front of goal. And, you'll have a field day with him. But yeah, they were exceptional saves. They were fantastic saves. But these are the kind of saves that you'd expect a world-class goalkeeper to make.
Fella, that's great. I couldn't agree with you more. Right, let's move on to the part of the show where we pay tribute, rip the piss out of, and criticize someone or something heavily in the world of football. Starting with the positivity, this week's Moratti, which will be presented by Mr. Mohamed Nassar.
Oh my God, he is beautiful! He is beautiful, yeah!
Yeah, I'm very happy to report that Icardi is back as the Moratti. He's been a firm favorite. I think if we go back and look at the recordings, he's probably the most nominated person for that weekly award. But and he hasn't been on top form recently. But 3 goals in 2 games, 5 goals in 5 matches. Guy's on fire. He's showing us that he's got the mental fortitude to be able to put any dip in form behind him. And yesterday it was all him. The reason why we have any right to talk about a 6-win streak is because of him yesterday. And hats off to Maurito.
Indeed, because he scored the winner both against PSV and he scored twice against SPAL. So yep, that's definitely why he's the Moratti for us. Right, let's move on to a slightly more comic thing. This week's Frog, which will be presented by Mr. Richard Hall.
Right, guys. It was funny this week because I couldn't really think too much. I mean, Inter, while they've not been performing as well as they did against SPAL, I couldn't really think of anyone who really wanted to deserve this too much. So I kind of just split it. One is just for a comedy moment, but the other one is something I'm a little annoyed with, but didn't really affect anything this week. So the one I'm a little bit annoyed with is Jean-Mario, because I actually really do like this player. I think he has got a lot of qualities. And when you hear the noises coming out of Inter at the moment, and everything seems positive, it really seems like there's a group. A while ago, we heard the fact that he was going to do something to turn the fans around, and I can't get my head around why a player of that quality can't at least affect something in training to be able to get Spalletti to look to use him. Because at the end of it, there's a player there that we're going to need squad depth, and I just really, really would like to see him. And yeah, he'll have to win over the fans, but it can be done. Look at Mauro Icardi. Look at what he's gone through. This is easy for him. And a player of his quality should be doing a lot more. So that's my Frog of the week. But the other Frog moment, if you would, if you'll just let me have this. Did anyone see Wallace against Fiorentina? That brilliant bit of defence stick. Goalkeeper plays the ball out from the goal kick. It's coming to the edge of the area. And instead of passing it back to the keeper, he passes it straight into one of the Fiorentina strikers' pass. Keeper gets lucky and saved it. The ball goes up in the air. All he's got to do now is just absolutely launch it down the pitch. He goes to volley it. It comes off his heel and goes out for a corner. And that was just my favourite moment of the week. So, yeah, just for him for that. But he's actually a quality defender, so I'm not giving him too much.
Yeah, that is a froggy kind of moment, isn't it? Right, let's move on to the negative part. This week's Moggi, which I will be presenting myself. And this week's Moggi will, without a shadow of a doubt, have to go to Moggi's old club, Juventus, for the incredibly immature, unprofessional, 19th century way they handled the statement they put out on Twitter regarding these allegations concerning Cristiano Ronaldo. As a lot of people know, Cristiano Ronaldo has been allegedly, there are accusations that he allegedly raped a woman. This is now being investigated by the Las Vegas police where these events took place. No one knows what has happened. But what Juventus did was that they tried to protect their player and put out the following statement. Cristiano Ronaldo has shown in recent months his great professionalism and dedication, which is appreciated by everyone at Juventus. The events allegedly dating back to almost 10 years ago do not change this opinion, which is shared by anyone who has come into contact with this great champion. Wow. Number one, whether or not you're good at your job or not, if you're a street sweeper, a footballer, or a judge, or a policeman or not, your professionalism and dedication is completely irrelevant to the fact that if you can commit a crime or not. And it's definitely irrelevant to the issue of whether or not you committed rape or not. So that's completely irrelevant. The second part, the events allegedly dating back to almost 10 years ago do not change this opinion, which is shared by anyone who has come into contact with this great champion. I think there are two women accusing him of rape. I think they didn't have a problem with his dedication and professionalism. So this is incredibly tone deaf. This is incredibly stupid. And it just shows how badly misogyny and ignorance about these issues is prevalent, unfortunately, in football, and especially in Italy, I would say. So for that,
Absolutely.
I think it's incredibly stupid. And again, I want to underline, nobody knows, okay, we have to say this, nobody knows if he's guilty or not. He has a presumption of innocence like everyone else in a criminal trial has. He has that right. But either you shut the fuck up and don't say anything about it, or when you talk about it, you show a little bit of respect for the victims of these crimes, because these are serious crimes. And not
alleged victims though, no?
Yes,
She
it
was,
is.
yes, but she was a alleged victim of rape. Well, she says, look,
It doesn't change the fact that it's black or white. He's innocent until presumed
Yeah.
until found guilty.
But Juventus should have said that. Juventus should have
Exactly.
come out and said something along the lines of, judging by the results of recent weeks, we are standing behind our man Cristiano Ronaldo until anything is proven against him.
You don't bring up his professionalism and dedication.
Yeah, because it's nothing to.
It's got nothing to do with this issue. It's ridiculous. It's like completely like there's no correlation between him being a great footballer and his professionalism and whether or not.
I agree. I agree. I agree, but I mean, the point I'm trying to make is innocence until proven guilty. Burden of proof on the accuser. All that stuff is enshrined in law, so we have to respect that as well. Whether or not the press release itself was a pile of shit, which it was,
Yeah.
I agree, but
it was
that's
incredibly.
so.
Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ridiculous press statement which belonged to.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder who runs their Twitter account. If that person, most of us take the public transport or a car to work. That person, I think, goes in a time machine because this was something out of the Victorian age. I mean, this was ridiculous. It had absolutely zero bearing, and it would be nice if Juventus could start acting like a club which is consistent in the century they're living in. That's not how you behave. That's not how something should be. That's not how you behave in the 21st century. It was completely uncalled for. It was ridiculous. And again, his professionalism and dedication was not called into question here. People who, whether or not you're guilty of a crime has nothing to do whether you're good at your job or not. it just makes zero
absolutely.
sense.
I think they've made. Sometimes it is better to say nothing, and
exactly.
and also if they were really pressed on this matter, and by so many different media outlets, and they could say due to the recent, the amount of questions they're getting over this subject, this is their overall statement that they're backing their man, and until anything's proven against him, and shutting it to bed. But you're right, it was, Jesus. To say that he's professional and a champion, I mean,
oh my God.
It was, I mean, Attila the Hun was professional, but, come on, it's like, do you know what I'm trying to say? It's one of those things where it's so irrelevant. And I just think for me, and it's nothing against Juventus on this at all, or Cristiano Ronaldo, it's just the fact that I think it does show Italian culture a little bit sometimes in sometimes modern day society. It's almost like the fact that it was 10 years ago as well,
Yeah,
it's
exactly. As if it doesn't matter if you. It was 10 years ago. Who cares if you allegedly murdered someone? Who cares? It's okay. He's a good footballer. He's professional. He turns up to training and he stays after training and hits extra free kicks. That's not relevant. Who cares? I mean, come on. It's just correlation. I mean, no. It was incredibly stupid. And as I said, we don't know if he's guilty of rape. We don't know if he did it. None of that is true. But that's beside the point here. It's this statement that I have a big problem with, and most people did as well. And if you compare it to the way that these things are handled in American sports and the professionalism shown there, and it's like you're barely in the same century here. One of them is in the 21st century, the other one is in the 13th century.
Absolutely.
Right. That was all we had time for this week. I'd like to give a shout out again to James Horncastle. I'd like to thank you, Mo, for coming.
Always a pleasure, fellas.
And also you, Richard.
Likewise, always enjoy it on here, guys.
And until next week, we'll be previewing the derby, amongst other things. Have a great weekend, even though Inter aren't playing. As always, I'm your host, Nima Tavallaey, wishing you a good weekend, a good week, and sempre e solo Forza Inter.